Hi, I'm Bob McCoskrie. Welcome to Straight Talk. This is episode 49. So it's a big celebration next week. Might have a steak. Now, tonight we talk about the opening of the Paris Olympic Games and did it signal the end of our cultural credibility? Did President Biden get shot, figuratively, by his own party? And is Kamala Harris a better option? And hopefully we'll also have time to discuss whether G-string bathing suits should be banned in public on both women and men. That's a big yes from me. And should politicians have to be parents before they can be politicians? The panel tonight, we are just on 4 because 2 of them were sick at the last moment. And so welcome to the panel. We've got firstly Simon O'Connor from Auckland. How are you, Simon?
I guess I'm doing rather well despite everything that seems to be happening in the world, but things are good.
Okay. And you got some gardening done yesterday, I hear.
I definitely got some gardening in, and because it's bucketing with rain here in Auckland, I'm now feeling rather smug that a whole lot of Philodendron Xanadu, just for all the gardeners out there, amongst other species, have been well planted and now well watered.
Okay, can't even say that, let alone spell it. Bruce, evening to you. Cold in South Island, supposed to be getting snow, I think.
It hasn't hit us yet, but it will, I dare say.
Okay, Sue in Masterton, how are you?
Good. It's cold outside, but the topics are hot here. I can't believe it changed from Friday to Monday, honestly.
I know. Run sheet totally changed. Okay, and Rex Ardar, that's a lovely shirt. Rex, what is it?
Oh, it's a Venn diagram with famous dystopian novels, TV series and movies. 1984, Soylent Green, Brave New World, etc.
Do you know who loves Venn diagrams?
I think her name might start with K.
Yeah, and end with
Miss Harris, I think.
That's right, Kamala Harris. She says she loves Venn diagrams. And so apologies from Brendan Malone, who came down with a dreaded lurgy today, and also Mel Taylor, who also has a dreaded lurgy, different ends of the country, so seems to be all over the country. Anyway, image of the week, well, there's probably 2 images, and that was the fact that I travelled all the way to Washington, D.C., and who did I run into? But Peter Williams, passing through on his way back from his trip to Europe. So that wasn't really the one that I was thinking of. The image of the week, I think everyone would agree on, is this horrific image from the Olympic opening ceremony, which... Well, I was travelling back. So when was the opening ceremony? Was it Saturday morning, was it?
Early Saturday morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and look, just because of my American week last week, saw a lot of coverage of especially Biden, also Benjamin Netanyahu, who was in the country and was in Washington, D.C., and also Kamala Harris, obviously. Now, the media are working overtime to say that anything that looks bad has nothing to do with her. So the video of the week is this little collage that Media Busters, I think is what it's called, has done of what the media said before she became the nominee for president and what they're saying now. Is she the border czar?
Border czar. Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Meantime, Vice President and border czar Kamala Harris facing some backlash.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
And this will be her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
People gonna have to counter the misinformation. You already hear folks talking about the border czar. She wasn't the border czar.
President Biden tapped Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, to be the border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled her.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now what she's up against is folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris. You know, she was the border czar.
Calling her sort of the border czar, which wasn't necessarily the case.
So the border, if they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar. She met with some of the Northern Triangle countries, but nothing has effectively changed.
Okay, so there we go. The media are already working overtime. She was the border czar, so she'll have to deal with the fallout from that. Actually, the media are working overtime and big tech is as well. Panellists, I don't know if you've checked, but there is a very interesting experiment. Google is actually trying to delete all evidence of both Trump and his attempted assassination. So if you go onto your mobile phone and just Google search President Donald, the first search item that comes up is President Donald Duck. If you go President Barack, President Joe, President George, President Jimmy, you will immediately get who the president is and what number president they were. But for President Donald, you don't get it at all. And if you type in assassination attempt, you will get all the assassination attempts on other people, but not Donald. And if you type in assassination attempt Trump, it's blank. Now, it depends on the browser you use, apparently, somebody was telling me. But it's a fascinating experiment. So anyway, you can try that one. Anyway, opening topic, and it wasn't supposed to be the opening topic, but it is the Olympics opening ceremony. And unfortunately, just some images before we go around the panel to see what they thought about it. This was probably the most offensive part that upset so many billions of people in the world, actually. This mocking of the Last Supper with a... halo, transvestites, drag queens. There's even a child there, of course, because you've got to have children in these situations. We also had the Paris drag queen bearded woman strutting her stuff. I can't actually show you the actual video footage, and that's because the Olympic Committee are so embarrassed by it. They've actually taken down the coverage, and they've been going around looking for it on any channel. So when I did McBlog this morning about the opening ceremony, I had a video clip and YouTube actually blocked the whole video until I removed that part. So they're working overtime to remove it, and they have actually removed it from the official YouTube channel of the Olympics. So anyway, Simon, start with you, seeing you're at the top left of the Brady Bunch. What was your view? Did you watch it?
Look, your viewers and you all know I'm hopeless when it comes to sport, as in I'll play it. I just don't really watch much sport, so I can't really boycott the Olympics because I wasn't watching in the first place. But obviously I followed what's happened. In fact, just published a Substack on it. There we go. Gratuitous advertisement on your show.
No, go for it. I'll charge you.
That's right. Take a royalty. No, look, an absolute shocker. The Olympic officials had admitted that it was directed at the Last Supper. And I say that because already there are people in mainstream media and the commentariat trying to say this was the god Bacchus and Dionysius. If you know your Roman gods, as maybe some of us do, Bacchus is never blue. He's purple or red. But it's just it's disgusting. It's insulting. But two very quick points on top of all of that. One is, ultimately they talk about tolerance and equity and inclusion. Well, this is the antithesis of this. They've insulted billions of Christians, including athletes who hold these beliefs. The second is it shows you, and others have said this already, when someone insults or attacks you, believe them. And this is the French authorities directly attacking Christians, despising them, believe them. This is the woke progressive left and their lackeys attacking explicitly the foundational values of Western society. And we should believe them. They disdain Christian belief in civilization. And so people should push back. Turn off the TVs. Don't bother watching the Olympics.
Okay, Bruce, were you watching it?
Yeah, I was. I did.
Any surprises? You're actually a fan of France.
Well, yes, I am, in a way. Yes.
In fact, did you notice our beautiful title, Bruce?
Pardon?
Did you see our beautiful title that we came up with? Gordy, can you just throw that across? C'était horrible. Yeah, do you know what that means? Yeah, it was horrible. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That was our culture for today. Sorry, Bruce, carry on.
Yeah. Well, a lot's been said, and I don't want to repeat what's been said, but I think the thing that struck me right at the beginning was that the ceremony encapsulated the whole West's religious and cultural decay. It's just not France. I think and it was blasphemous, but it was also tacky, grotesque, and mindless. Twerking, I had to look that up, by the way, to the pop song Freed from Desire, I thought was apt, but it displayed neither discipline or taste. Any idiot could have done it, and they did. And the queer activist, I'm not sure whether it was Jolly Thomas or Thomas Jolly, who directed the ceremony, and he said he wanted everyone to feel represented. Well, of course he did. He always does. That's what goes on. Anyway, the whole thing's been roundly condemned, and a representative of the French government's even apologised, and I've taken it down and all that, as you say, so there's something going on there. But the heresy, this is the point that struck me, but the heresy that gave the excuse for the whole thing won't go away. I've lived off and on in France for 10 years, and during that time, I've watched from the local village square the cult of diversity slowly take over the village and the national conscience, and the power that cult gives to perversion. It gives the perversion a rising animosity towards Christianity, which we saw working out in the thing. Now, it's not only in France, but it's here in New Zealand too. And I want to make the point, I think a point worth making, is that the diversity cult the diversity cult's a Christian heresy.
Yeah.
It reconstructs love your neighbour as yourself to love yourself. And it reduces the sacrificial love of the Christian, I think, to the fulfillment of desire. When salvation is the consequence of submission to the cult of diversity and mockery, which we saw, is how it hides the hole in its heart, insofar as it has one. And all of this is a terrible irony for France. Once you've bought into the diversity cult, there's no way back. There's no to reform it would be to destroy it. It's got no self-critical power. It might even work for a while in a decaying culture, but it's not effective when 10% of the population is hostile to your overriding inclusive narrative. And the hostility has to be glossed and blamed on racism or something else. In the meantime, the diversifiers are forced to live out their lie. France's problem isn't unique, but it's more intensive and more obvious there. A Christian heresy confronts a resurgent Islam. So I think really we should pray as believers, pray that the diversity heresy is overwhelmed by the gospel of Jesus Christ, our Saviour and Lord. I'm not sure what else we can do but pray in this situation.
Okay, and Bruce, you are speaking from experience, because you've actually lived in France for a number of extended periods of time over the last decade. So you've actually observed this kind of
observed a real change in the French culture over that 10-year period. A real change.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an increasing discomfort with what's going on. I mean, the ordinary... I don't know any French people who would actually approve of what the Olympic Committee did. Overwhelmingly, the French people would have not liked it.
Yeah.
I think that, certainly in the south where I was, that would be the case. Only a small number of people who are trying to control the cultural narrative want to do that.
Yeah, actually, just before we came on air, I actually did see some footage of a large church service happening outside in Paris, I think it was. Very large crowd, so may have woken up some people. Sue, what did you think?
Yeah, well, I'm a great fan of sport, and I do not participate in it. I do not run it and even run late, but I love to watch it. And we have got a great family history of sitting down and watching the Olympics and the great fanfare of the opening ceremony. And so I was a little bit late getting up, and oh gosh, I forgot to set my alarm, and ran out, and so I missed a little bit of it, but I saw most of it live. Now, the authorities can take that down, but the damage is done. It's out there. And, I was horrified. I was watching the athletes. I went, oh, great, I'm up to the part where the athletes are coming. Oh, that's clever, coming down on the boats. But can you please tell the cameraman which side the cameras are? Because there are a couple of teams that came out with their backs to the camera and all that sort of thing. So we're watching the teams come out, and then all of a sudden we crossed this bridge, and this this just Mardi Gras in amongst trying to welcome the athletes in a really professional way. So all the art, the so-called, nod to art and everything actually took away the time and the glory of the athletes arriving. And I think that was just awful. You could not look away. You could not avoid it because it was kept crossing to the drag show, and it triggered me. And my husband heard me say a few naughty things, but I couldn't believe it. And I just felt so awful and sad for families that had children watching this. So it was just really horrible to see. So you had the athletes coming out, and then you had this awful drag show, and it was just such a distraction, and it took away, it distracted from the athletes coming out. So it just overshadowed them, and you just couldn't avoid it. And it was interesting watching I'll admit, yes, again, I watched the news, Bob, so I could report to you what they did. Mainstream media that night, no one showed any of those pictures. No. And it was just awful. And it was not family viewing. It was a Mardi Gras rather than family-friendly viewing. Mainstream media on the news did not report anything. And, in fact, there was one little picture at the end, and May Heron reported and said, and the ridiculous. No, May Heron, it was not just the ridiculous. It was vile and it was vulgar and it was far from family viewing. Yeah. So I was disappointed.
Okay. Rex, you were stoked that your favourite band actually got to play. Who was it?
Yes. Gojira. And first time a heavy metal band has ever played at a major sporting ceremony. So had that one redeeming feature. One of my favourite bands. But first thing I'll say is no serious sports fan wastes their time watching opening and closing ceremonies. So I didn't waste my time watching. I never do. I can't be bothered with that. There's some very solid hours of sport to be watched. And I'm doing the hard yards for swimming every morning at the moment. Now, but of course it's all been said about how vile and so blasphemous the Last Supper scene was. One thing I'd say about the French is, you have to realise that the Sorbonne intellectuals, the intelligentsia in their salons, they love this sort of anti-clerical, anti-Christian stuff. And you have to remember that a lot of what we live with today from postmodernism comes from the old frogs. It's from Jacques Derrida and Michel Foucault. So they gave us all this intellectual, I don't know what you want to call it, vomit, really, that we've been putting up with for decades. So it's hardly surprising it would work its way into the opening ceremony. And as Lord Cadogan said in Chariots of Fire, never trust the frogs. And that's a motto I always teach my kids. Sorry, Bruce.
Okay, great. Right, let's check out some of the comments that have come through. Everybody is very animated about this. Amanda says, what's a border czar? And somebody answered that. Oh, here we go. Susan said, border czar is in charge of the border. So basically hasn't done a job at all. Neil Johnson is reflecting you, Rex, and quotes David Starkey, who said, all bad ideas are French. Rosie said the French can keep... Gosh, you guys are being nasty to the French today. The French can keep that to themselves. The rest of the world didn't need to see it. Thank goodness I was sleeping when the debacle of opening ceremony was taking place. Daryl says the opening ceremony was a very dark affair, didn't find it uplifting or unifying, just depressing, blasphemous and offensive to 2.6 billion Christians around the world. Leslie says, disgusting parody of the beautiful Renaissance classic by Leonardo, as I've said, Picasso's Les Demoiselles d'Avignon. The brothel would have suited this insulting piece of entertainment. I just wanted to read that one so I could practice my French. We did not need to see the pictures on Straight Talk either, Bob. Well, yeah, I know they are offensive, but for some people, they haven't seen just how bad they were. Stella said the Russians have been excluded from competing, so the Olympics isn't inclusive, as it could be anyway. Damien Wells says, has Christopher Luxon commented? Well, he commented on Gaza, but no, I don't think he commented on... Maybe he didn't get up early on Saturday morning. June agrees with you, Bruce. Yes, by praying it means we're not overwhelmed by the tsunami of that cult. James says, I hope that this is a turning point where Christians unite, totally reject and publicly call out this evil movement. Brent says, I thought France was a Catholic country. Bruce, is it a Catholic country?
No, it's controlled by its little philosophy called laicite, which is sort of secular humanism.
Okay, humanism. Okay, well, we saw lots of that last night. Some of it not clothed at the Olympics. And there was one...
There are more Muslims in a mosque than Christians in a church.
Right.
Every week.
Okay. Okay, and HB says, I'm watching. Well, I know you are because you commented. You're back from the USA. Yes, I am back from the USA. In fact, I bought some things back. I bought back this cap. Make America Great Again, MAGA. I don't know if I'll wear it out. I just want to put it behind me so that next time I have a mainstream media interview, I can trigger them. And there's also this one that I bought back for a friend that says Trump 2024. And the thing is that you could get really cheap caps called Biden for president. I don't know why they were so cheap, but they were super cheap on my last day. And somebody was obviously printing a lot of shirts saying Harris for president. Anyway, that is a perfect segue, as we say in radio, to the next topic, which is, did President Biden get shot in the foot by his own party? And this is what he said when he resigned.
In recent weeks, it's become clear to me that I need to unite my party in this critical endeavor. I believe my record as president, my leadership in the world, my vision for America's future, all merited a second term. But nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. It's the best way to unite our nation. You know, there is a time and a place for long years of experience in public life. There's also a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices, yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now. Over the next 6 months, I'll be focused on doing my job.
Okay, that's enough of that because I saw Bruce start to nod off. Bruce, I'll come to you first, actually. Biden, about a week before, said, I am standing. And then within a week, he had changed his mind after getting COVID. So did COVID kill his re-election, or did his party kill it?
His party killed it, and he was shot by his party, but only after he shot himself in both his feet. The whole thing's been a gunfight of the first order, and it's been tedious to watch. And the cover-up, which is, well, I don't know to feel sad about the cover-up or laugh at it or whatever, but it's been unbelievably obnoxious. And even after the dreadful performance of the debate, they still try to cover up and say, well, he's not Gaga. And on his resignation, Biden still continued the subterfuge, pretending the cliche was the latest in deep think. The defence of democracy is more important than any title, he said. Goodness gracious. He's too old and too out of touch to be president. And looking back, that devastating and embarrassing evacuation with Afghanistan was enough just by itself to have got rid of him, I'd have thought. Watching him on television, I wasn't sure whether I was deeply embarrassed for him or overwhelmed by the tragic nature of it all. I suppose we're told that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Well, it would seem that clinging on to power at all costs befuddles the body politic at the very least. And the whole thing it's been like watching a French bedroom farce. It's been so terrible.
I like the way you brought France back into it, Bruce. That was excellent. Rex Arda, the interesting thing, we didn't actually get to the end of the clip, but he does say that one of the things he wants to do before he finishes his term is he wants to transform the Supreme Court, and of course that is by term limits, and code of conducts or something, term limits, which is ironic coming from a career politician. Does that concern you, his proposal around the Supreme Court?
Oh, I hadn't heard that one. Oh, not particularly. Most highest courts in the world have a term limit. You're not in for life, but
I thought Supreme Court you were in for life.
No. Oh, US one, yeah, but not. I don't think our one is. I'd have to look, but I'm pretty sure ours isn't.
But the US is for life.
Oh, US has always been. You die in office normally, like Scalia did. But my prediction about 7 or 8 weeks ago was that Biden would take one for the team and step down. He'd have to be pushed out. And I predicted wrongly, as it turned out, that Gavin Newsom would be selected. But they've gone with Kamala Harris, so there we have it. And the usual suspects were behind the demise of Joe. You see the Obamas and Clinton, Pelosi, all the major donors said they wouldn't donate. And even Hollywood celebs like George Clooney and that came out and said they weren't going to support him. So, no, I mean, it had to take place. It was quite obvious. It was the only question is going to be who was to replace him, and that's now been answered.
Yeah. Okay. My prediction, noted down, is that when Kamala Harris loses, that George Clooney will be the presidential nominee for the Democrats in 2028. But anyway, that's just a guess. Sue, do you think he was pushed, or do you think he just came to the conclusion rightly because he's just not coping?
Even a child could see that was a stitch up and was carefully managed for the media. They talk about a lot about democracy and Trump is a threat to democracy. But when you look at it, and as my husband reminds me, that America did vote for Biden to be their Democrat representative for nominee for president. And, whether that's foolish, whether we can see the obvious, strange things happen in the USA. So he was their nominee, and to suddenly do a turnaround, it is a lack of democratic process. I'm a great stickler for process and good processes happening, and really fun at parties, that one. But here we were lacking, there's a lack of process. And my only thought was that, Bob, you mentioned it, that the money that was raised for the Biden-Harris duo could only be spent on that campaign. So now the question is, can that money now be spent on Harris? So that's why you've kind of had this transfer to Harris, which is I just see her as irritating. I always thought she was a very inept vice president as well, lacking in, there was no vision. They talk about age with Biden, but with Harris, you actually don't see any vision, or she's not the young, vibrant candidate that I think that we as women would like to see. The only thought I had was that they chose Harris so that she wouldn't show up Biden as inept. She's a flake and she has an irritating laugh. So that's about all I can that registers with me. So I'm just wondering the legalities around whether that money can then be transferred to the Harris campaign.
Yeah, well, when I was in DC, I was watching the media coverage on this, and basically Kamala Harris and the Democrats just came back and said, well, maybe you're not supposed to, but we're going to do it anyway. They just seemed to be willing to flout the law and really didn't care about it. And certainly they went against democracy in terms of how she was sort of just chosen. It's going to be interesting just to watch the Democrat meeting when the Congress, or whatever they call it. Sorry, I missed out one. Simon, what do you think?
In no particular order. I think, look, I'm no legal expert in the United States, but the Biden-Harris ticket having attracted all that money, does make it slightly easier just to transfer it to her. I think it's one of the reasons the party's kicked in behind her rather than a completely new candidate. But they were ultimately desperate. She is a complete and utter lightweight. There's very little to actually endear her to the public. Once they get through this little honeymoon period that's been generated by mainstream media in particular. To your fundamental question, I mean, Biden did shoot himself repeatedly in the foot, and we've, traversed this before about ultimately how actually quite sad and cruel the situation is for him as a human being. But undoubtedly, he was knifed in the back and pushed out. I mean, he was adamant he was not leaving. But I think it's relatively clear by the fact that so many of, the princes and princesses of the Democratic Party were out within minutes of his decision, affirming his choice, and Kamala Harris indicates this was well orchestrated. In other words, at the end of the day, the Chuck Schumers and the Nancy Pelosi's and the Adam Schiffs and the George Clooney's and others have been working very specifically over the last few weeks to move him on. And look, undoubtedly they presented him with facts and figures and said, there's no way you can win. We'll probably lose the House and the Senate as well. You have to go. But he didn't want to. That's the fundamental point. And it comes back to what the others have said. The Democratic Party has operated non-democratically. And again, I think this will come back to bite them in the coming weeks as people step back from the initial novelty, is that the right word, of what's happened and go, well, hold on, no one selected this person. And undoubtedly the other side, Trump's campaign, will focus in on all the stuff that she has not done. And I think that's where I want to really end. It's what she's not done. Because at the same time, she's done nothing. Really, it's just that sad, really.
One of the interesting things was that in the media coverage, Black Lives Matter actually came out in opposition to the way that Harris had become the nominee and said, look, we don't know who the deputy is, or the running mate, because she hasn't even appointed that person yet. And so they said, how can we judge it? They hadn't gone through the democratic process. So it was interesting for Black Lives Matter, who actually have been bailed out of prison by Kamala Harris during the riots in 2020. So, and the other interesting thing, sorry team to take you back to this, but the thing that I noticed was that Kamala Harris's rise has been very similar to a political woman in New Zealand, and that's Jacinda. Comes in at the last minute, comes in to take over the clear loser that was the leader, and starts this honeymoon that you referred to, Simon. But the question is, will the honeymoon go right through just because she ticks all the boxes of intersectionality, woman, Asian, has some Chinese in her. So, there's all those aspects as well. I mean, does that worry any of you, Sue? Is it a bit of a worry that people are just going to like the fact that, hey, we could have our first woman president?
Yeah, they get a bit obsessed with the DEI quotient, and I like I've said before about Trump, that I'm not easily swayed by a charismatic leader. That I look at character and their policy and vision and the way to engage with somebody, and you can't say that Kamala that she relates well on a public stage. She's not the great world leader, eloquent. Somebody in the media the other day described her as a great orator, and I thought, what are they looking at? Where are they hearing this? I thought, I guess here in New Zealand we can see the obvious, but nothing will surprise me with USA and with American politics, and someone used the word before, it's tacky, just trying to tick a box of DEI. That's actually quite offensive to me as a woman, that because she's a woman and she's a woman of colour and she's this and she's that she has to be, but she's not the very best to offer a great vision and a great policy platform for America. It gets lost on me, but. It's American politics. And she hasn't been to the border.
Okay, did anybody else want to just comment on that one before we move on from Biden? No? Forever hold your peace. I'll just check the queue while you check.
Are we still talking about Kamala, or we just go...
No, we're going on to Kamala. Just hold that, Bruce. I'll come to you next. African Sheep says, interesting name. Kamala is actually Jamaican Indian. There we go. Thank you very much. So, woman, black, and has Indian as well. So, Kevin says, no, Biden didn't shoot himself. He was simply suffering from dementia. Please don't treat me like that when the time comes. I agree, Kevin. I think it was sad to watch that someone just wasn't honest with him. Rosie says, Bob, never say that name that starts with a J on Straight Talk. Who? Jacinda. Rosie said, and Kamala also lied about going to the border, and she's never been anywhere near it. Yeah, she was asked about that. Have you been to the border? She said no, but I haven't been to Europe either. Apparently that was the answer. Matt says, yep, she was chosen because she ticked all the diversity boxes. Charmaine says, Biden and Harris have almost destroyed America like Labor almost did. My staff member Ken says, has Biden been spray tanned? And
I noticed that too.
Yeah, there was a funny comment down
Orange
here. They
pen.
said, where is it? I obviously didn't save it, but the answer was, that's what COVID does to you. It makes you browner and taller or something. Anyway, just before we go on to Kamala, just got a very exciting announcement about a very brand new show starting later this week. Hi, I'm Bob McCoskrie.
And I'm Simon O'Connor.
And we want to tell you about a brand new show, and it's called
Political Playback. It's an opportunity to look back over the course of a week of all the things happening in Parliament and in politics.
Okay, I'm glad he knows what's going on. And we're also going to use his 12 years of experience to talk about the things that are happening behind the scenes that maybe we don't know about.
And it's our hope, between my experience and Bob's and your questions and thoughts, that we can delve into the issues politically that matter.
So it's live. You can give us your questions, make your comments, and 5 o'clock on a Thursday night is going to be the key place for you to be.
Live on Facebook and across all good platforms.
There we are. We are starting that on Thursday night at 5 o'clock, and we will look back at everything that's happened in the House or around the House. And Simon, what are we talking about this week?
I'm just putting it into the diary. It's good to know. Yeah. Look, there's obviously a big few topics. We're moving into the tax cuts now, so you've got to talk about all the inflation and financial dynamics. We've obviously had that terrible but important report that's come out about abuse in state care. And then always the ongoing debacle of the Greens, amongst many things. So there's no shortage of topics, Bob.
Yep. Okay. Now, just a couple of quick comments here. Susan says she ain't black and she can't define woman. So, she identifies as black. So there we go. Nicole says, so ironic to tell a woman to vote for her because she's a woman when apparently anyone can be a woman. June says, not sure if it reflects Kamala accurately, but many of her voters are not looking too deeply either. And KR says, Gerald Celente, who's that? Gerald Celente, the milkman down the road, thinks Harris will win because of her support for abortion. Trump is non-committal, that's true. But I think it's clear to say that Kamala will be radical on abortion. Trump could be persuaded otherwise. And that was the general message from social conservatives at the conference that I was at, that Harris will do bad, Trump could do good. And that was kind of the best they could hope for. Anyway, let's move on to Kamala Harris, because the simple question is that if she is confirmed as a Democrat nominee for president, she could be the next president of the United States. And what have I got here? There we are. That's Kamala Harris, if you don't know who she is. And she is just obsessed with abortion, totally obsessed. And at any time, no restrictions at all. So for the panel, if you had the choice of Joe Biden or Kamala, which would you take, and can she beat Trump? So I'll go in reverse order. Rex, is Kamala better than Joe, and can she beat Trump?
Yeah, well, because Joe's a man with early stage dementia, and so just about anyone is going to be an improvement. But Kamala does provide. She appeals to young female voters, to some of the black constituency, not all of them, because a lot of blacks are now turning Republican. I don't know if she appeals to Hispanics, but perhaps not. But she does present a tougher opponent than Trump does. But in the end, of course, it would be neither Biden nor Trump who's running the thing. It is the deep state or the managerial elite, or there's the technocracy, or there's a number of different words for it. But these people are just the figureheads of the real movers and shakers that we very seldom ever see. So she'll read her lines, she'll do her teleprompter well. She'll try to reduce the cackling and silly giggling. She'll try not to say, what is it, from where we will go, leaving unburdened from where we've been. I can't remember the stock phrase. She'll try and drop some of those. And
unburdened by what has been.
Yeah. So she'll be coached to avoid some of those things. And remember, there's a mega machine there behind both parties. Yeah. Got hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on PR, on media, on all sorts of things. So I think it'll be quite a close race.
Okay, and you'll like our title because it says Kamala Chameleon. Great title there, Rex. Why is it so funny?
Well, you just got to sing a song. Oh, I won't sing it, but it starts
You're a big boy.
I'm a man without conviction, just substitute woman. If you go through the lyrics, but just see, she is a chameleon.
I'm a man without conviction. I'm a man who doesn't know. That's Boy George. I didn't think you'd be a fan of Boy George, but there you go.
I'm not.
Because I thought you were into heavy metal.
I am, but I can always claim a good pun when I see one.
Okay. Sue, can she beat Trump, and is she better than Joe?
Look, who knows? This is American politics. I think that as a vice president, she's been very polarising. And even I do know one very committed Democrat voter in my life. And even she's not a fan of Kamala. So she hasn't, even in Biden's term, she hasn't really had that traction of policies apart from going on about restoring the Roe versus Wade abortion policy. So she's a bit of a one dimension. And look, I never say never when it comes to American politics. And I will say that it's very much a tipping point election. And I have heard it said that if Kamala becomes president, it would be akin to Chloe Swarbrick being Prime Minister of New Zealand. So maybe that's a wake-up call that everybody needs. And before I go, Bob, I do have to recommend the book is better. The book is better than the Netflix. I always, as an avid book reader, the book is always better. And you do yourself a favour, everybody, and go and read it, because Trump has chosen an incredible running partner. And he's not a clone of Trump. He's refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did download that to watch on Netflix on the flight over. Very good movie, but I'll read the book as well, Sue, so there's a challenge. Bruce, is she better than Joe, and can she beat Donald?
Well, it scares me, but I think she could, which is a bit frightening, to say the least. But just to follow up on Simon was quite right. The Democrat Party is not democratic, although the media keep mixing up Democratic and Democrat. I'm not sure why. They just don't have, the syntax is a bit wanting. But I think without divine intervention, she could well be, and she will be, the Democrat Party nomination. And just as a bit of a background, I've been looking up a bit about her, and Harris is in consultation with an outfit called Bear Star Strategies. Now, the Bear Star Strategies is a smart aleck Californian political consultancy firm, and it was the shepherd of her journey from state attorney to the Senate and her original pathetic attempt to be president. And over the past decade, Bear Star has been very successful in getting prominent Democrats elected in California. And one of the things I've noticed about in that last speech of hers, she was actually much more articulate than she has been in all the other speeches I heard her say. And she's adopting a very aggressive attitude to Trump, honing in on his obvious weaknesses, that he's accusing him of all kinds of things that the courts, of course, accused him of. So she has plenty of ammunition to go on. But she pushes the whole progressive die nonsense. And, of course, all the progressive hard lefts will be salivating and all that. However, competence, unfortunately, isn't the deciding factor in political success these days. The polls show her running neck and neck with Trump, which is not encouraging. And it's just unfortunate that Trump has missed his opportunity when he got the bullet through his ear. He could have been somewhat chastened by that and been a kind of peacemaker. Well, it seemed to have lasted only about 10 minutes, and he's sort of back to his old self again, which is unfortunate. So all I can say is, God save New Zealand, God save America, and God save us all, because we are certainly going to need him.
Yeah. Simon, do you think she can do it?
Yeah, I think look, it's always possible. It's American politics. We saw in the polling, the general polling, so not just one polling firm, it was still relatively close between Biden and Trump. And look, let's be really clear, America is a divided nation. So this is not going to be a runaway victory for anyone. I, at this point, don't think she'll be able to do it. I think we are seeing media going above and beyond, or rather returning to their normal business as usual of promoting the candidate that they prefer. And you were quite right to analogize with Jacinda Ardern, and we can think about what we saw here in New Zealand, just endless coverage and amplification of her message. And they'll do the same for Kamala. Sorry, now I'm getting all the names mixed up. So it's possible, but I think the other thing we need to bear in mind is all she's doing at the moment is consolidating the Democratic base. Now, that's good for the Democrats, but that won't in itself be enough. She's got to appeal to that middle ground, and I think she is going to struggle there, including the fact that she is so extreme on abortion in and of itself. And secondly, is that really the issue that millions of Americans are going to go to the ballot box for? And some radical, crazy feminists and others will, but they were always going to vote Democrat. Most Americans are, from what I can tell, worried about the economy, healthcare, lawlessness, and a border which has seen millions of migrants pour across every day. So let her go championing killing babies, if that's what she wants to do. But I'm just not convinced that's what's going to turn the votes in America sufficiently in her direction.
Yep, and we saw that media bias just last night with taking that comment that Trump made about vote now and you won't have to vote in 4 years. If you watch the whole video in context, he's speaking to a group of conservative Christian young people who are notorious at registering and voting. And he's saying, look, we need to fix up voter ID so that we can make sure that only people who are resident in the US vote and the whole thing's not screwed. And he says, do it now and you won't have to vote in 4 years because the system will have been sorted. And, of course, the media just took the little bit, you won't have to vote in 4 years because I'm going to be a dictator, which, of course, he can't under the Constitution and all the rules. But anyway, that's not for the media to actually discern that. Now, let's just have a look at some of the comments. Minty says, love that name. Minty says, Kamala appeals mainly to Trump haters. Well, that's the Democrats, basically. Ricky said, just remember the hammering she got from Tulsi Gabbard, who I think was a Hawaiian. Was she the Hawaiian senator in the run-up to the last election? Tulsi Gabbard is no longer in the Senate, and she is worth commentary. If you see her online, have a listen to some of her commentary. Albert says, should be easy for Trump to win, that is, unless it's rigged again. Justine says, Kamala has also been involved in selling aborted baby parts. No, not involved in selling aborted baby parts, but when the undercover agent David Deladen or something undercovered Planned Parenthood were selling body parts, Kamala Harris, as the prosecutor, went after David, not after Planned Parenthood. It was shocking. And Ricky says, true, Bob, but Trump supporters are growing fast in numbers with all the footage I've seen so far. Yeah, Trump certainly attracts a huge amount of people to his rallies. Quick pop quiz. We're going to make this real fast, team, because I really want to get into G-strings. Sorry, you'll understand in a minute. Simon, have you been to Washington, D.C.?
Several times.
Bruce?
Yes, a few times.
Sue?
No, but I'd love to.
Okay. And Rex?
Once, yep.
Once. Favourite American city or one you'd like to visit, Simon?
I'd have to be Boston because I live there.
Bruce?
Well, I think it'd have to be New York.
Really? Sue?
Yeah.
I have been to several cities in America, but I'd love to go to New Orleans purely for the food.
Yeah. And the music. Oh, the jazz.
Yeah, the music, yes.
Yeah. Rex?
San Diego.
San Diego, okay. Yep. Anywhere but LA for me. 40 years ago, David Longy became Prime Minister. That's, I had a photo of him somewhere. What number was he? Oh, too bad. You know what he looks like. There he is, thank you. David Longy became Prime Minister 40 years ago. Do you hold him in high esteem or low esteem? Bruce?
Oh, I hold him in reasonable esteem. He had flaws, but he goes above in my esteem a bit because the only Prime Minister's ever replied to a letter written to a politician.
Right. Okay.
When he was Prime Minister, even replied. I can't remember what it was about now, but I do remember getting it.
Hope it's
I think he was personable. I think he was personable. I think he ultimately engaged the people.
He was personable, and he was good-natured, and he was amusing, but he was a bit incompetent too.
Oh, he was a very good speaker, very good with the oratory, a little bit like Shane Jones. Rex?
Me, low to medium. He was good. He unleashed Roger Douglas to bring in the various neoliberal economic reforms which are necessary. But he'll be most remembered, as Helen Clark said, for his anti-nuclear stance, and I have never supported that. I am pro-nuclear.
Okay. Yeah. Sue?
I wasn't in the country. This is where I fail. I know more about Australian history and politics than New Zealand history in that regard. So don't know enough to judge, though I've heard quotes. And again, I look at a person's character, and I think probably, I probably look at his flaws in his family life.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I should still ask this one. What sport are you mainly watching during the Olympics, Sue?
I love it all. Love the swimming, of course, and I get to see the Aussies. I'll cheer on the Kiwis as well. Great efforts. And I love the hockey.
Rex?
Oh, swimming, boxing, cycling, athletics, a long list.
Okay, basically you're just planted in front of TV for the next fortnight. Simon?
Don't really follow it. I keep saying I'm a bad New Zealander. I just
humbug. Okay. Bruce?
Rowing, and I would have loved to have watched the sevens, but unfortunately I'm only used to watching the women now. But rowing is certainly interesting, and I like cycling and athletics and boxing.
Okay. I'm not sure.
I'm not too hot on what's that they do underwater? I've forgotten what it's called now.
Synchronized swimming.
Drowning.
Okay, and finally, I won't even ask you this one, Simon. Which do you prefer the most, rugby union, the All Blacks, or rugby league Warriors? Sue?
Oh, I'm AFL all the way, sorry. I cheer on the All Blacks rather than the Wallabies, but I'm AFL Saints supporter all the way, and when I can watch it, I watch it.
Okay. Rex?
Well, at the moment I prefer, but all season I prefer rugby league, the NRL to 15s.
Bruce?
Rugby union, and I'm not sure there's a conspiracy or something. There's creeping popularity with rugby league. There's some kind of conspiracy going on, I'm sure.
Yep. Do you want me to ask you, Simon? Because your family said you're hopeless at sport. I noticed you said you only play it.
Oh, well, they're clearly making up. No, I enjoy playing, but I'm indifferent. I just don't care.
Okay. Right. This is the topic, final topic. We've got enough time. The topic you've all been waiting for. And it's about let me just show you an image first. I was in Hawaii a couple of years ago, and we're on a beach on the north of Oahu, and this went past. Yep, that's a dude, and he was wearing his togs, but it's in the form of a G-string. Now, I don't know about you, but that's the last thing that I want to see in public. Anyway, a new Plymouth mum has made the headlines because she wants G-string bikinis to be banned at public pools. She's organised a petition. She said that it wasn't appropriate for kids to be looking at, but an academic said that the issue of body exposure discriminated against women because men are allowed to walk around with their shirts off. Yeah, missing a slight thing, and anybody that does gender studies, you know they're slightly in Waxville. But anyway, Sue, I might start with you on this one. What would you, I hope you liked our title, F flat for the G-string. That's fail flat. Sue, what do you think on this? Do you agree?
Well, I see it as a dress code issue with that petition. It's you can't just wear what you want wherever you go. When you're in Parliament, as Simon would say, there's a dress code, if I'm correct. When you're in court, you have to wear. Do you still have to wear a tie? I don't know. There is still possibly, there is a dress code, I guess. When you're in court, when the judge is presiding over the court, that they have a dress code. So I see it as a dress code issue. And in a confined space within near a children's swim class, you can't unsee that. You cannot escape that. It's in your face, a bit like the Olympics. Saturday morning, I can't unsee that. I don't have a choice but to be in my midst. And there are dress codes that should be appropriate for that swim centre, especially when children are present in their swim classes. On a beach, we look around the world and there's all sorts of various dress, that it could be a little bit more lax. And I can't even unsee that picture you put up, Bob, but it's awful. But I see it as a dress code issue, and it's something.
I tell you, I had trouble keeping my lunch down when you ran past. Yeah, I didn't take the photo, by the way. I got my kids too.
I'm quite sensitive to things. Look, this is something that the petition has a rightful place. Just say the dress code. You have to be. Do you remember too that there's been in some pools that you can't wear board shorts and you can't wear jeans and you can't wear T-shirts and things. They've got a dress code. So this is a part of compliance. And, I don't agree with, let it all out and, there's some things that just scar you for life seeing anyway.
Okay. Bruce, can you follow up that?
Well, I'll try. Why do we even need a petition? I mean, does vanity so easily overwhelm the needs of kids?
Yes.
Have we got to that point in our culture?
Didn't you watch the Olympics?
The response of the gender studies academic is the most interesting sort of thing in this whole deal here. Her neo-Marxist spin on history and sociology is what one would expect, I guess. And she says, why should men get around exposing their chest and plumber's bum? Well, I didn't know what a plumber's bum was. I had to look it up.
What a crack up.
And then she goes on to say, women seem to have a cultural duty as markers of moral decency and are punished for perceived failure on that account. Well, of course women set the moral tone in a civilised society. The realism of sexual biology demands it. It's always been the case. That's the point, in spite of gender studies doublespeak. There used to be something I called courtesy, which understood the God-ordained complementary of the sexes. Doesn't seem to have eluded our academic, though. I'm not sure what she does with a phrase like women and children first. How does she account for that? Does she see that as a negative thing or something meaningful in a culture?
Yeah. Okay. Simon?
I'm probably going to diverge here, and not for crass reasons. I found it hard to get excited about this particular topic. I suppose I look at it that, I don't know, I get nervous at where you draw the line and things like this. Is it appropriate? Probably not, for all the reasons that people have touched on. My political antenna says that this is just a reason. They've allowed this woman to put out enough rope to hang herself, and then to go after attacking people that media and others deem as prudish. So I just saw it as a way to have a bit of a cheap hit at people. I suppose my other point is fundamentally you address these not by too many rules or regulations, just sort of societal expectations, to be honest, and perhaps pushing that boat out a little bit further. Stories like this, I'm not meaning us talking about it tonight, but the very fact that the media wanted to run it, in some ways is going to embolden more people who just, with be it ignorance or narcissism, just want to force themselves out there and have everyone bend around them. So, as I said at the start, I find it hard with this particular issue to get too worked up about it all. But I will confirm you will never see me wearing said item.
Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. Rex?
Well, yeah, and on Bruce's more serious point, I would agree. I mean, both sexes have to exhibit modesty, but just given the nature of the visual acuity of men and their propensity to beastly behaviour, woman as a practicality shouldn't expose too much. Now, I spend a lot of time, indeed every day, in public pools, and I would say this one worrying trend is that they're starting to introduce woman-only sessions in municipal, that is to say, council pools. So I am opposed to that. This is a wee digression. And this is, by the way, is a phenomenon I saw in the UK, that many of the council pools there have woman-only sessions, and that comes from pressure from the female followers of the religion of peace, once more, who insist upon that. So I object to woman-only sessions. And final quick thing, of course, I would never pay any attention to a University of Otago lecturer in gender studies. There we go.
Rex, I was going to say, you do a lot of swimming. That's not you running along the beach in Hawaii. You haven't been to Hawaii in the last couple of years, have you?
I have done, but I certainly wasn't wearing that.
Okay, that's a bit of a worry. Right, let's just finish up with these comments. Just on Harris, Cherie says if Harris is elected president, there'll be a tsunami of wokeness that'll make what we've seen over the last few years look like a trickle. Could be right. Craig says Kamala is going to be president. Get used to it. FNL says Kamala has no substance and the debates will expose her. Yeah, bring on the debate. They're going to be very exciting. Regarding David Longy, Hex Token says David was the beginning of the end for New Zealand. He nuked society to the left. Craig Brown says everyone loves prime ministers when they're gone. Vanessa says that she says she's loving the, sorry, I just removed that. She loves the skateboarding at the Olympics. Neil says whatever his shortcomings, we can all thank David Longy for saving us from Rob Muldoon. Actually, Rob Muldoon, like you, Bruce, Rob Muldoon was the only one who wrote to me when I wrote to him. On to G-strings, more importantly, as first world issue, as Craig says. Daryl says, give the G-string the flick. Quite right, and I agree. Amanda says, when you're at the beach, it's okay till you leave, like ad years ago, Togs undies. Leslie says, I can tell we're getting tired, eh? I'd like the panel to name a former political leader they admire and why. Oh, okay, we'll come back to that to finish. Daryl says, don't let Parliament vote on this. If they abolish the G-string, the exhibitionist MPs will just show up in their birthday suits. And Cherie says, my preferred swimming attire is a tent. So let's just go back to that one to finish with. I'd like the panel to name a former political leader they admire and why. Who would like to start, team? Quickly, we've got 1 minute.
The great
Bruce?
Robert Menzies.
Oh, Sue. Robert Menzies?
The great Sir Robert Menzies.
The Australian.
Yes, sorry.
Okay. You're allowed to pick Australian. Yeah, you are Australian. Rex,
I was
have you
quite
got one?
fond of big Norm Kirk.
Norman Kirk?
Norman Kirk.
Okay. Yep. Simon?
I'll second Menzies, but I'll throw in Wilberforce with the UK flavour.
Oh, yes. Very good.
Yeah, it's a quick, easy way out there.
Yep. And Bruce?
Well, I'd go along with Sue. I think Menzies was John Howard. I think was even better.
Yes, he was.
And who was? Did you say, Simon? What was your man?
Wilberforce, strictly not a leader, but I think a politician of some courage.
I'm trying to remember a New Zealand one. Oh, Kirk. Yes, Kirk was agreeable.
Kirk.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, and then of course there's a few good English ones, but I won't mention them now in this august group.
Okay, I'd say Bill Rowling. I'd say Bill Rowling because he was the New Zealand's shortest prime minister because he was only prime minister for like half a year, wasn't he? After David Lange, and Winston Churchill, obviously. In the UK. Okay, that's it, team. We're out of time. Somebody said Norman Kirk, and that's enough. Right, team, we will be back next Monday night at 8 o'clock. Thank you, Simon. What are you talking about tomorrow on Solid Ground at 8 a.m?
So we'll be touching on a number of issues, both local and global. Obviously, we'll touch a little bit on the Olympics, what's been happening in America, but we'll be turning some focus back here into New Zealand as well. But you'll have to tune in to find out what.
8 a.m. on all our social media channels. Bruce and Rex, keep warm and cool Christchurch. Might get a bit of snow in the morning. And Sue, thank you very much. And to our watchers, thank you. Another great night. And we will see you next Monday night at 8 p.m. for Straight Talk. Have a great week.